One made their name covering the Hawks, the other covering the Clones. Jon Miller, Chris Williams. From the Channel Seed Studios, this is Miller and Williams on Iowa Everywhere.
Channel Seed. Seedsmanship at work.
Powered by Prairie Meadows Racetrack and Casino.
What's going on? Welcome to Miller and Williams here, post Vegas. Not at Stadium Swim today.
No, dude. I wish we were.
Miller appears to be like at his back patio or something.
Yes, I am looking out at a cornfield that within, I would say, 2 weeks, Chris, is going to be impregnated, hopefully with channel seed, so they can get the best yields down here in Kansas City. It doesn't have the excellent glaciated soil that the state of Iowa has. They make do with the best they can down here. They really literally got the leftovers here in Missouri from the glaciers. Iowa got just all the prime black dirt brought down from Canada and is reaping the benefits to this day. But you know what? Gives them the best chance to have great yields if they go with channel seed. We know that.
Missouri has sloppy soil seconds.
They do. They have a lot of seconds in a number of categories. Throw out a category, I'm pretty sure I can find a way to say they weren't there first.
Here in the Channel Seed Studios. Appreciate their sponsorship of Iowa Everywhere. Of course, Miller and Williams brought to you by our friends at Prairie Meadows Racetrack and Casino. Big day for me. Taking the girls to the Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, I've heard that movie's out. That sounds wonderful. Yeah.
We had this one circled like 6 months ago, John. Really fired up about the Mario. It's a Mario.
That sounds more like Luigi than Mario, frankly.
Well, I'm doing my best here.
Yeah,
doing my best to impersonate a cartoon Italian boy.
Right, and while at the same time not to offend an entire ethnicity with stereotypical
No, it's what Mario
accents.
does.
For sure.
It's a me,
right.
Mario.
Yeah, a pizza five, sure. About a bing, about a boom. Yeah, and then it delves into some type of knockoff of, Joe Pesci and Goodfellas, and then we go down that road.
Yeah,
which is fine. You've never seen Goodfellas?
No.
I haven't seen it for 20 years. It's definitely one of the best mob gangster movies of all time if you're into that. But if you're not, I get it. I'm not into zombie movies. I don't watch them. Won't watch them. Got like halfway through All of Us. Yes, I watched the episode with the romantic same-sex couple. Didn't bug me as some people thought it would, which is so stupid. But after that episode, I was like, I just am not into the zombies. I just don't like it. And everyone's like, it's not a zombie. It's not a zombie show. I'm like, you know what? There's zombies in it. Zombies in it. It's a zombie show.
I'm not a big zombie guy either. That world has never interested me, but I love ghosts.
You do love ghosts.
But I don't like zombies. Zombies doesn't do it for me. Zombies are so unrealistic. That's why I can't handle it.
Right. Have you ever been to a medium?
No. Well, wait a second. Is that like a psychic?
Yes.
I've been to a psychic. I've never been to one who's like talking to the afterlife, though. I've never done that thing.
Correct. I will just say this. Let me pause. I usually have not paused in my radio and podcasting career to think if I should say something before I say it. I'm going to say this. Someone close to me recently visited with a medium. Okay. And I'm a skeptic. I feel that in this day and age of social media and the footprints that we leave, especially this person, that they have a footprint, but they're not an active person, nowhere near as active as I am. Anyway, there were some things that I feel like 70% of what was discussed with the medium or what the medium relayed absolutely could have been. I could have found that within an hour of Google searching. Correct. Especially, and this person was like 8 months out booked, but there were 30% of it, like names that the father only called the child that no one else would have known about. There were a number like, hey, whenever you see this animal out in nature, your dad wants you to know that this is him, connecting with you, and other things. I'm like, there's no possible way. So my whole notion on, I guess if you want to call it ghosts, or spirits flipped 180 this week. I will tell you that.
Really?
180. 180. I've been coming around to the notion that there is another, whether it's a parallel universe, a dimension, whatever word you want to call it, spirit world, whatever, depending on what your beliefs are. I've been coming around to believing that exists, and I pretty much am there. And,
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have some driving time today?
I do. I'm driving up to the Iowa City area tomorrow. Is a visitation for my my high school football coach, one of the most important people in my life that helped shape my life. He passed this last week, Butch Peterson. So I'm coming back to Iowa this tomorrow, later today.
So it was around Halloween. I always try and interview like a ghost hunter around Halloween.
Yes.
And I interviewed a lady from Iowa. She lives in the Cedar Rapids area.
Mm-hmm.
And you should totally listen to that.
Send me a link.
I will.
Is it the Chris Williams podcast show?
Yeah.
I'll find it.
So
you don't do enough episodes for me not to be able to find it.
Well, I'm kind of moving that over to Iowa Everywhere now. Believe it.
That's smart. Yeah. Brand.
Yeah, we're just gonna put all that together.
Okay.
Her name is Katie Hopkins.
Okay.
And she's written like 5 books about paranormal investigating and stuff.
Okay.
And I thought it was a fascinating podcast because you listen to Katie, and I've gotten to know her. There's not an ounce of crazy in this woman. Like, she's totally rational, normal. Like, most people you think like, oh, ghost hunters are kind of gothic and nuts, and like there's all these judgments people will cast on them.
Right.
This woman looks and acts like she could be hanging out at your country club or and then you just do me a favor and go and listen to it. I'd love to hear what you think of what she had to say. We should go on a hunt with her, is what I'm saying.
Oh, I did not say that, my friend. I will go tornado hunting before I go ghost hunting. Especially now that I'm starting to have maybe a little more belief that they exist. Hunting for ghosts will be way low on my list of things to actually do.
Well, I was actually thinking we could spend the night in the Villisca axe murder house and videotape it. We could do a documentary out of it.
Oh, okay. Do we get electricity?
No. Lights
Pure
off.
Darkness.
Yeah.
Out.
Ooh.
I'm out.
I'll give you some candles.
I thought you were going to say candy, and if you said candy, I might have done it. I don't know. I have to think about it. I mean, I'm down to do things for the sake of show business. But man, I don't know that I want to flirt with certain things.
So
go ahead.
Villisca Johnny, he oversees the axe murder house. He's like a world-renowned paranormal investigator.
Right. Would he spend a night there?
Well, yeah, I bet he would do it with us.
Okay.
He told my dad, who for, 15 years cut the grass and fertilized the lawn for the Villisca Axe murder house.
Right.
He told my dad that the kid ghosts there that were murdered have gotten so tired of the hunters and stuff like that they primarily live upstairs with his kids now. They've shifted houses.
So they've come to his house.
Yeah.
Because they know he's a welcoming person that's not going to persecute their spirit. Yeah. So it's interesting. So bothered. What is your notion of what these spirits or these entities, these sources of energy? That's the way I like to describe it, because that's what we all are. There are pieces of us that will live forever, whether or not our consciousness lives forever. We don't know that, but our energy will. Energy cannot be destroyed, and it just transitions into a different form. So, are they just living their lives? Do you think they're just living a life in this different dimension?
I just think they're stuck.
Well, or maybe that's it. Maybe we go to a different dimension and that is where we live eternity, and or maybe that's where we hang out before we do this all again. I don't know. I'm open to all of it, frankly, because what I was indoctrinated into as a child and believed for 48 years has absolutely left me wanting a great deal.
Well, that's a good weekend to think about that. Just saying. It's like, hey, my mind's going all sorts of places now.
Listen,
like
I'm not an atheist.
This dead man moving the rock. Like there's a lot to think about with that.
There's a great deal to think about, and the message of Jesus is fantastic. I just wish Christians actually listened to it and did it.
Well, as I tweeted out yesterday, I'll take their Busch Light. I mean, if they're going to
right, absolutely
throwing that Busch Light out.
You'd mentioned a podcast that you want me to listen to, right? And I will listen to it on this trip. But I've already got one that my wife has asked me to listen to, because we watched a movie on HBO the other night called Transhood, which apparently is causing all sorts of problems in, fundamentalist evangelical Christian circles for, being child grooming, child abuse, et cetera, et cetera. And I was reading the story yesterday on the Baltimore Catholic Diocese and all those hundreds and hundreds of pedophile, child assault things. And I was sitting there myself thinking, man,
sounds like you had a really light night.
Yeah, it's pretty much. Yeah, man, that whole LGBTQ plus community being the groomers, the OG groomers are doing just fine in the Catholic Church, the Southern Baptist Convention, and all that. So, do you want to just start over, or should we just keep going?
Good. I did like this. We are live on YouTube, and Matt says 9 months with CW. John is believing in ghosts and turning into a Cyclone fan. Great job, CW.
Not true. I might exaggerate the truth, accentuate the reality a little bit more. So things probably seem a little more crazy than they actually are. But the basis of the belief is there. All right, go ahead. I've just derailed all this. I apologize.
No, it's good. I really didn't have a lot of hot topics for us today. I feel like our audience is probably about
tired,
enough
worn out
of the women's basketball stuff. Like, I mean,
right.
I will say this because I'd like to get your opinion on it. I said this to Chris on our show Wednesday. That story, not really the game, but the aftermath of it, brought out a different level of ugly than I can remember. I don't want to say ever. We had a listener pointed out that Carson King deal was pretty ugly.
Right.
But it was weird. Just the nastiness that the Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark national championship game brought out. I'm still, and I made it. Like honestly, I try and post we repurpose our content, and I'll post it all over the place.
Right. Right.
I probably should have just not posted the clip of me and Chris saying we didn't have a problem with what Angel Reese did on Facebook, because I should have known better. But
yep.
I swear, John, I swear to you, when we went live the second the game ended, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Not for the life of me did I think that this would turn into a racial conversation where the way that it did. And, looking back in hindsight, it's like, duh. But I was just focused on the officiating and the game and the fact that the Iowa women just lost in the national title game.
Right.
Not for a second did I, in that moment, think that this is going to turn as ugly as it did. And, boy, I was wrong.
I didn't have a premonition of it turning ugly, but I felt like the opportunity was going to be there for there to be a significant discussion, disagreement, discourse, whatever you want to say about race. I felt that all along. For the last 2 seasons, the Aaliyah Boston versus Caitlin Clark debate, every time it's been come up in all the articles I've read, there have been in many of the things I've read or heard, I've felt there have been dog whistle words, veiled introductions of race into the conversation when people were trying to, like, they didn't have the balls to go all in. So they just, like, just dip their toe in the water of it. And it's been simmering beneath the surface for 2 years, because that's what it seems like a lot of people wanted to make this about. All right. But I also try to sit back and view things from outside the comfort zone of my own biases. I'm not saying I always succeed at it. I don't. But I feel like I'm fairly decent at being able to disconnect myself from my inherent bias and stand outside and try to look at it objectively. Now, I can't stand outside of things and look at them from the perspective of a Black American, because I've never been one. I'm never going to be one. But what I can do, and what I have done, especially the last 3 years of my life, is I have made a concerted effort to listen to, lean in, ask questions of Black voices who are willing to talk. Because the Black community, from what I've heard and what I've gathered from people that I've spoken with who are Black, they're tired. They're tired. They don't want white Jon Miller reaching out and saying, hey, you know what? Can I ask you a question about this? Because I guess I never realized that, wow, this may be right. They're tired of it, because they've been getting this for years and years and years, and they just want white people to figure it out. So I'm not surprised that this turned into a racially charged topic, because it just seems like this is where it was headed. Now, none of this justifies Angel Reese's, did she cross the line? That's for some people to say. It's not necessarily for me to say. Would I have done that? Probably not that far, but it was in the same vein of trash talk, don't you think?
Yeah, and I mean, it was classless. That doesn't mean, like, that's not a classy thing to do, what she did.
No, but
it's also not it's not classy when Caitlin is not guarding the South Carolina player and, shooing her off like, oh, you're not good enough for me to guard, like Caitlin did. We all saw her do it, and we all laughed at it because, oh, it's Caitlin doing this and she talks trash. That wasn't
right.
That wasn't classy either.
Right. But I've been covering college athletics since the late 90s, I guess, quasi-professionally. Professionally means getting paid for it. And I have still yet to uncover any type of legal document that any student athlete signs. The classy clause doesn't exist. No. There's not an obligation. And you're not the one saying this. I'm just saying there's not an obligation to be classy. You hope people don't turn into dickheads. Like, who was the guy from Duke, and then, Davidson from Wisconsin. Those guys were just dirty dickhead players.
Grayson Allen, right.
Just dirty dickheads. You don't want that. But Angel Reese, yeah, sure. I wouldn't apply classy to it, but.
No, and like, I also, I would guess in 20 years, Angel's going to be, 40 then? Probably
right.
Hopefully a Hall of Famer. Hopefully she has this great Hall of Fame career.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess she'll probably look back at that moment and have a few regrets. I would guess. Like,
maybe.
It was I'm just guessing, because I did a lot of stupid things. Now, not obviously with cameras on it, but like, who didn't at that age, right? Like,
yeah, who didn't drive by the juvenile detention
center? And I would guess Caitlin would
them.
do the same thing. Like, I don't know. The whole thing's just weird to me. How Iowa fans now are like, well, Caitlin it's always class, like the way, and she responded brilliantly. She could not have responded better.
Absolutely.
Like, she ignored her, the perfect thing to do. And I don't believe Caitlin that she didn't see it. I think she absolutely did, and I think she did a really good job of just keeping her emotions in check. Everything she said after the game has been perfect. Caitlin could not have represented herself in the University of Iowa better than she has. Don't sit here and tell me that Caitlin Clark is like the classiest, like, straight-laced player to ever play women's, because she's not. We watch her do stuff, and we encourage it, and we love it. I mean, I did a whole podcast sitting down with her where we talked about this, about the double standards of men and women, and Like,
Right.
I'm the biggest Caitlin Clark fan there is. I'm not even criticizing. I'm just saying, like, can we call it both ways?
You both things can be true.
Yeah.
You can be absolutely in love with watching Caitlin Clark play basketball, which I think a lot of America is. I mean, it was the most watched women's college basketball game of all time. And it was the most watched Final Four game of all time. And it was the most watched Elite Eight game of all time. And every one of those games involved Caitlin Clark.
Yes.
But you can also say that some of how she does what she does is annoying, or you don't like it. I said this months ago and took heat for it. Caitlin Clark's one of the biggest complainers to referees I've ever seen at any level in any sport in my life. And I don't like it. I'm not like sitting there, cussing her out at the TV. I'm 52 years old. It's just not how I would do it. Same thing with Angel Reese. That's not how I would do it. But I also can step outside of my own bias and recognize that how I would do something isn't necessarily applicable or transitive to how a 21-year-old white girl from Iowa would do it, or a 20-year-old black girl from wherever Angel Reese is from would do it. All that can be true. Now, I will say, after the game, say that everything since the day after the game, I think those are things that Angel Reese may want to walk back later in life.
That's what I mean.
Maybe not, like with the whole White House stuff, and then yesterday, then Iowa coming out and saying that, hey, the White House trips are for the winners, which is great PR by Iowa. I mean, Lisa Bluter should take over all the PR for the whole athletic department. But then on the other side, Angel Reese is saying, you know what, we'll just go see the Obamas.
Yeah, come on.
I think that maybe she'll regret it, but I will also say this. When you consider the history of Black female voices in America and the suppression that they have had to deal with from the minute that they came over on fucking boats, Black women on the soil of what is now the United States of America have been the lowest on the rung of the social order. They were brought in chains. They were then converted when the African trade slave was ended, when people in America decided, oh, wait, we probably shouldn't steal people from other countries, and they ended that. What did they do? They turned Black women into livestock, and they were breeding stock. And that is how the slave owners continued to generate more revenue for their plantations, because people were revenue. Babies were future slaves because we couldn't bring them across a boat. And white women who were also in a patriarchal system, and they were low on the ladder rung, but they were still above Black women. And if you go in and you learn and understand the history of how Black women's voices in this country have been absolutely diminished, suppressed from the get-go, that is where I come from, saying, I don't really want to have much of an opinion on Angel Reese and what she's saying, because I never walked in their shoes. I have been around, in the last 3 years, I've been very fortunate to be around strong, intelligent, incredible, awesome, powerful Black women. And I've listened to them. And everything I'm saying isn't, oh, John, how do you know? I'm telling you what they've told me. So I am going to sit back because I can't walk in those shoes.
Yeah, no, it's well said. It's a very complex topic, and I was ignorant enough, again, when we went on that instant reaction deal where I was just going to talk about the game. We were going to talk about
it's not, Chris, it's not ignorance. You wanted to talk about the game. You wanted. The Iowa women were just in the national championship game. You wanted to talk about the game. And
there's nobody in this market who's a bigger women's basketball fan than me for the last decade.
Right.
And I was so excited, and it was such a great game, and I knew the numbers it was going to do. And God, we got off the air, John, and I pulled up my Twitter, and holy crap, I was shocked. I thought it was going to be like, oh, you guys you're not killing the officials enough.
Right. But what it was what you saw. Now, here's a question, and maybe we can just make this our first Miller and Williams off-topic podcast of the year, whatever. It's the off-season. Why do you think that reaction was the way that it was? And did you let's just start there. Why do you think the reaction was the way that it was?
Well, a couple reasons. One, people hadn't had any chance to cool off yet, right? Like, it had just happened.
True.
We went on the air the minute the game ended.
I know, and I'm sorry I turned you down, but I was actually out with friends, and I didn't think I'd be of a helpful person.
Well, two, I'm the Cyclone guy in the eyes of many of these people.
Okay,
so
sure.
In the eyes of many of these people, I cannot have an objective opinion about the University of the hilarious part to me is like the Iowa State fans. There's a huge portion of that fan base that's been so pissed at me because of my association with Iowa women's basketball based off of me sitting in Carver Hawkeye Arena and doing what I thought was a really good interview with the biggest sports star in the world right now. Like,
Chris, in 30 years, when you look back on it, you may have interviewed the biggest star that you will ever interview.
Right. But I guess from my side, it's kind of a lose-lose because you're
Iowa
not
Jon Miller enough for Iowa State fans.
What?
You're not Jon Miller enough for Iowa State fans. You're not a big enough douchebag.
Well, like, they were like, I guess my point, like, you asked why do I think that happened.
Yeah,
One was just the emotion of it. This wasn't doing a show the day after. We were doing it the minute after. And then, then that, like, all of any work that I've done with women's basketball over the last 12 years goes out the window because I'm the Cyclone guy. And I'm I'm just going opposite of Iowa. And then I got called, like, woke and all this other, like, weird stuff because I wasn't even taking a side. All I was saying was exactly what Caitlin and I talked about in that podcast, where it's more entertaining. Like, women's basketball 10 years ago, they were robots, John. They were. They just ran up and down the court, and they did their layups. They shot free throws well. Now they talk shit. They are shooting from half court, right? Like, it's just so much more and that's the point I was trying to make. It wasn't, of course, I'll always, like, root for Caitlin because I really, really like her and she's an Iowan and all this. It wasn't, I'm taking Angel Reese's side over Caitlin Clark. It was, I would be a total hypocrite if I sat there and applauded. Again, the perfect example is what Caitlin did in the game against South Carolina. Brilliant defensive game plan by Lisa Bluter. We're going to let them shoot from the outside. That's great. When Caitlin started, like, shooing that player or whatever, like, not shooing her, that's not the right. When, like, she was doing the hand motion,
don't need to guard her.
You're not good enough for me to guard. I can't, like, intellectually think that that's funny and applaud it and then kill Angel Reese for what she did.
I totally agree. It's hypocrisy, but it's unsurprising hypocrisy. It is 2 legs bad, 4 legs good cabal mentality, which should surprise no one because we live in the most cultish, separatist, cabalish, my tribe-ish time in the history, I think, of this country. Not surprising one bit. And I think that Caitlin talks trash. It's awesome. Is Caitlin one of the catalysts that is helping transform the women game into something I think is going to be maybe very widely appealing? Yes, but she's not the only one. And I think that's maybe where some Iowa State fans come in and get irritated.
Yeah, and that's also, I think, a big part of why Angel Reese had such an attitude about it.
And she's right. She's right. Caitlin, one person by themselves cannot lift a sport into it cannot elevate the sport by themselves. Caitlin Clark lost the national championship game, right? South Carolina won 42 games in a row. UConn's going to be the biggest, baddest team in the sport next year. And I don't think there's any doubt about it if they're healthy. it's not like Iowa has been this machine. And you look at these and LSU has been down too, but they won a national championship within the last 2 decades. Iowa is like a newcomer to this party. And Caitlin is amazing. Caitlin may wind up being the best women's basketball player to ever live. I watched the replay of the South Carolina game when I got home on Friday night. I was up till 2 a.m. That's a first for me. I've never watched the replay of a women's basketball game, and I don't watch replays of many basketball games. But I watched the Bird and Taurasi broadcast to see their comments. What the things that they were saying about Caitlin Clark in the women's game, it's amazing. But Caitlin's not the only one. So I understand. I mean, that's kind of what I've been feeling all season long in this Clark versus Boston or Iowa. I'm like, man, these other girls, these other programs, these other women, not girls. Like, wait a second. We've been here for years. We've been doing this. We've been playing fun and exciting basketball, and they have. Now, Caitlin Clark's a unicorn, but I understand the jealousy, and I understand how it spills over maybe into what some people call unsportsmanship or unclassy behavior, but Caitlin Clark does a lot of it too. There's room for everyone.
Yeah, I wanted to address a couple of things on YouTube from people watching. First of all, Jeff in Texas says, CW, those messages you got were stupid and shameful, but what portion of your listener base actually did that? Obviously a small one, a vocal minority, but I can tell you that I put that clip on my Facebook page and it's still getting stuff. Like in it there. Right. So my point is, John, and you've learned this enough. If one person thinks it and is saying it, there's a whole lot of other people behind them. And it not the thing is too, like on the Facebook thing, a lot of it's not even my listener base. It's just people who are trolls who somehow this showed up and it showed up into their algorithm, and now they are. But I actually feel the need, and maybe this is the wrong way to go about it. A lot of people, you get this, John, will say, well, why are you giving that person attention? Yeah, that's very fair. You're very, very true there. I also think it's, if you believe in something, to point out the stupidity and point out the hypocrisy. And maybe you can change a few things along the way as well. What do you think about that?
Right. I see both sides. And frankly, I'm at the point in my life where I want to talk about those things, that I want to bring those things up. Yeah, I could just leave them hidden and not bring the ugly out into the light. But we live in a society where the ugly is dragged out into the light every day. And matter of fact, it's not dragged out into the light. It volunteers to run out into the light because that's just the world that we live in. So yeah, I have no problem with talking about it. And usually if you make a post and 5 or 6 people within an hour or so respond in the kind of the same area code, how they respond, you absolutely, I mean, folks, political polling, television ratings, radio ratings, these are sample sizes of like 700 or 800 people. All right. They say, 51% of registered voters think that Donald Trump is a jerk. And they've actually reached out to 700 and some voters, and 51% of 700 said Donald Trump's a jerk or Joe Biden is a jerk or whatever. That's where they extrapolate these things from. So I don't think it's unfair. Matter of fact, it's steeped in auditative science.
I'll make one more point, and then I want to read a couple more of these.
Yeah.
For the Iowa fans who are, just because I'm the Iowa State guy, Iowa State's fan base would have acted the exact same way if Angel Reese had done that to Ashley Jones. I guarantee it. Like, I'm not this isn't like a moral high ground Iowa State thing like a lot of these people.
It wasn't a good look. It wasn't a good look.
And I'm glad that Mr. Teddy on YouTube has brought this up. I've wanted to talk about this for a long time.
Okay.
And John's the perfect guy to talk about it with. He says, Chris, from what I saw, it's how you were cheering for her, meaning Caitlin Clark. We want Iowa State women's basketball. I am an Ashley Jones fan. You think I'm not an Ashley Jones fan? I called her first game. I called her last game. She's my friend. Her dad is my friend. She's great to my daughter. I legitimately think that she's an amazing human. We've covered Iowa State women's basketball and lost a lot of money doing it in the lean years when nobody cared. at Cyclone Fanatic, but we did it because I thought providing coverage of Iowa State women's basketball was absolutely crucial, and it was the right thing to do. And we were hiring people to do it where, again, like people weren't necessarily reading it, but I thought it was important. And now people do read it because women's basketball is so much more popular than it once was. And my point here, John, is the whole I'm an Ashley Jones fan thing. So am I. But you should also be able to objectively look at it and go, Ashley Jones is a great player. She might be the best player Finley's ever had. She's going to be a first-round pick in the WNBA draft. She's going to be a pro for a really long time. One of the best talents I've ever seen. But she doesn't transcend the sport like Caitlin does. So you can't just expect the exact – they're not the same thing. And we get into this deal in this state all the time where it's like it's got to be 50-50. The Iowa women went to the Final Four and almost won a national title. The Iowa State women unfortunately lost in the round of 64. I can't control that, you know? And – like this whole Williams has jumped bandwagons and he's with Caitlin Clark and he doesn't like Ashley Jones. It's just stupid. It's stupid. It's not true. It's I sat there in Vegas with Hassel and rooted my ass off when Iowa State was playing Caitlin and the Iowa women. Like it's just
I know.
Ridiculous.
I was texting with you and you told me to fuck off.
I did.
So yeah,
I was mad.
Yeah,
I was way more mad at the women's game than I was the men's. Like I'm a bigger fan of. I have told so many people this in private. My favorite team, my favorite sports team in the world, is Iowa State women's basketball. Like where I get emotional and amped up, and it's just where I'm the most passionate. That is it. That it surpasses the Vikings. It surpasses my Braves. That is my favorite team. So I took it a little bit personally with a lot of these Iowa State fans.
I get it.
Some of the stuff that they have said to me.
Right. So for me, I think I'm not sure that I'll get where you are, but I get closer. I can't wait for next basketball season to start. Really hope somehow they can get this transfer from DePaul. But at any rate, back to
they'd be the preseason.
That would be unbelievable, wouldn't it? They would.
Yeah,
they would
be
preseason unbelievable. But most teams would. But yeah, that would be quite the two-man game, especially. Yeah, that would be amazing. But back to what you're talking about. To me, it's the jealous sibling game playing out. It plays out in our state. Hell, there's some families where siblings, one of them's an Iowa State grad or fan, and one of them's an Iowa fan or grad. It is just a unique place to live and work in sports media. There's not a ton of places like it. You know, Duke and North Carolina, yeah, they're really close to one another campus-wise. That's a pretty unique thing. And they're both in the ACC. Back when Missouri and Kansas were both in the Big 12, that was an incredibly amazing rivalry. But they're both Iowa and Iowa State are in different conferences, so you have that stupid conference allegiance that some people have. You have two universities that ideologically seem to be, I'm not going to say polar opposites, but they focus on different curriculums. You know, Iowa State a lot more focused on agriculture, veterinarian, and I'm sure there's a lot of them, like maybe engineering, probably a lot of things that Iowa State's really good at that Iowa isn't. But that was also kind of quasi by design. Iowa's more the humanities, the law school, the medical school, things like that. So you have all these just huge differences. Iowa, University of Iowa, and Iowa grads, a lot of them come from the Chicago suburbs. Iowa State, a lot of them come from rural Iowa based on some of the things that they'll study. So you just have these ideological differences in some regards. It's beautiful. I've learned just to lean into it and embrace it. And there's, I've made the bet I made for myself, and I totally own it. I've been owning it for a long time. There's some Iowa State fans that are just never going to give me another chance, and that's okay. I don't blame them. But the ones that have, it's like I enjoy interacting with them. It's actually more fun for me to interact with Cyclone fans that say, hey, John, I used to hate you. But, I've been listening to you lately, and I realized that, in addition to, me self-admitting I was just being a dick, you have some interesting things to say. And I appreciate that a lot more, or just as much, let's say, than an Iowa fan said, hey, John, I've been listening to you for 20 years. Always loved everything you said. Keep it up. And I appreciate that too. But it hits me just it's a little bit different. Like you said earlier, sometimes you want to talk about topics to attempt to get people to look at things from a different vantage point, through a different prism, to stand outside of their inherent biases and look at something with fresh eyes, or at least eyes that don't go in prejudging. And when you can be a part of that process and help somebody do that, and they acknowledge that and send you a note back, say, you know what, you helped me look at this a different way. Frankly, that is like the biggest, most enjoyable thing I get out of all of this, and the trips to Circa. Those are the two things. That's why I do it. It's my friend, Derek's still following me. I mean, I feel pretty cool that the owner of a casino follows me on Twitter. And I'm 52, and it shouldn't make me feel cool, but I'm being honest.
We'll get back to Circa here in a minute. Mr. Teddy follows up and says he got into women's basketball because of me. So that's good. I'm glad, and I appreciate it.
That's cool. That's really cool.
That was the whole point back for the last decade. I genuinely, so I grew up in this family where Bill Fennelly was a god, and Vivian Stringer was I remember, didn't Stringer take Iowa to a Final Four?
Iowa went to a Final Four in 1993. I think it was Stringer.
Yes,
I don't think
remember
it was
watching
Angie Lee. Yeah.
I remember
then in
watching
1987,
that.
they set the NCAA. Yeah, they set the NCAA attendance record in in the mid 1980s, like 20-some thousand people in Carver, which broke fire code violations. It was Iowa against Ohio State.
Listen, I'll take criticism. I got thick skin. I understand how an Iowa State fan who's followed me could be like, oh my God, Chris is supporting this Hawk now and whatever, and this Iowa women's team. But I will not. There's the one thing I will not take, or I'm not going to accept, is that I've stabbed Iowa State women's basketball in the back or something. Absolutely not. It is ridiculous, and I'm glad we got to talk about this. I've been wanting to talk about this for a month and a half, and I really haven't.
The people that are emailing you or texting you saying that you are stabbing Iowa State in the back, they are the same. If there is a Venn diagram of people that believe that Donald Trump is still president and that JFK Jr. is influencing him and is in the flesh and alive, and you overlaid the Venn diagram, the number of the people who believe that you have turned hawk and you're being a douchebag and all this and that, it's a flat circle. They're the same people. So the strategy, that's not you saying, it's me. The strategy that I would adopt if I was you is my favorite strategy, which is the FE strategy. And that strategy is very simple to execute. I'll tell it to you really quickly. Fuck them.
Real quick before we go, you got to get to some meetings and stuff. I did want to. I'm sure the trip to Vegas is going to get brought up a lot on this show.
It was legendary. I miss it, Chris. I miss it. It's been 2 weeks?
Yeah. What would you give for just a night playing blackjack again right now? Oh my God.
I would give $500 if I could be transported to the start of one of the nights that we played blackjack. I'd say, yep, I'd do that for $500 right now. Let's go. Matter of fact, I mean, I used to say every night in Vegas is 3 nights of real life out in your town. And we were there for 4 nights and 5 days.
Yeah.
And the next day I didn't get home to my bed until 2:30 in the morning.
You had to
and the next
cashed.
I was, it's okay. And
you
the
got
next
that leg
day,
room though on Allegiant.
I did.
Right?
Oh,
or whatever
I did.
You're from. You got
on
that
Southwest. Yeah.
Okay.
I got the great chair. And the next day, about 3 p.m, I said I would do it again right now. Yeah. That's how much fun it was. I was looking forward to that, counting down the days like a kid for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that was a guaranteed setup that it was not going to live up to my expectations. It exceeded every single one. And playing blackjack with Chris Williams in Vegas is one of my things I didn't realize I needed in life, but now I can't live without.
It's like where I come alive. Like
You do.
every
It's a whole
part of me
different
comes
you.
alive at the table.
Ladies and gentlemen, what you're looking at here, if you're looking at, or what you're listening to here, if you're listening, this is just a guy that simply, he just wants to sit down and play some cards. That's
like
it.
To play cards. That's all I want to do.
Just likes to play cards. That's
Just
all
sit
he
down,
wants to do.
Just a group of guys just wanting to play some cards. That's all we're here
for. The number of inside baseball things that we like, Chris kept saying that 100 effing times, and it got so annoying it was funny. And he's like, guys, I'm just here to play cards. I'm just here to play cards. And then,
all the shenanigans get brought up. Like, I'm not here for it. I'm here to play cards with my friends. That's it.
Right. It was epic. It was so much fun. And folks, you know what? I realize how fortunate I am. So many people listening to this right now are like, man, I'd love to sit down and play blackjack with Chris Williams, and they're never going to get that chance.
No, you wouldn't.
I had it for 4 nights in a row, and I'm really fortunate.
Matt says, hey, guys, next time you go CW, wear that Tyrese Pacers jersey. John, you got to rock a Murray Kings one.
Done. When are we going? When's the next trip?
We'll get it planned.
Okay.
I might opt for the Brock Purdy the next time.
Okay, yeah, for sure. I continue to see video clips that Circus Twitter puts out of the sports book, and I'm envious every time. I'm like, I want to be there. I want to live at that place. I could live there. Yeah,
I was thinking about this the other day too, because I was just the doldrums of like daily life. We all have it. Not that we aren't. Right. Not that I'm not blessed, but like something where it's just like,
call it what it is. Sure,
I'm cleaning the kitchen or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I thought like Circa might be my favorite place in the world. It's top 5 for sure. Like we're just
of happy places,
times.
Places that you could retreat to and just know you're going to be happy, right?
Yes.
I
actually really wish. I wish we could have had one more day and just sat in that sports book like we were doing on Sunday.
Yes.
When I hit that big NASCAR winner, you still got my ticket.
Yes, right? I still have your ticket. Yes, that was awesome. Like it was great, hanging out back with Derek in his little spot, and thankfully he didn't cuss me out when I like sat in like the VIP seats. He kindly told me that there could be some VIPs coming, and when they came, he was going to tap me out, and I said, "Yes, sir." But it never happened. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the heck out of that. Hanging out, talking with a guy that owns 3 casinos on Fremont Street. But I really liked sitting in those leather chairs that we did on Sunday. That was super awesome. Cannot wait to go again. None of this is like I'm just saying this for the benefit of a sponsor. Legit, I would spend my own money to do what we did. And I would do it a month from now.
Maybe we will.
Maybe
would your wife
should.
go?
Yeah, I think she would. My wife's up for any travel trip. She and I are going back to California here in mid-May.
She much of a blackjack player?
Spend some more. You know what? We play. I have like a felt green roll up blackjack top thing that we put on our dining room table. And last summer, I taught both my girls how to play blackjack. I taught them how to play Texas Hold'em. We had casino night. I was the house. I always won. Taught a bunch of life lessons. So she knows how to play. I don't know that she'd hold down third base at Benny's. The way that I did, the way that you did that one night when old Texas Dolly a few tables over was talking like this and talking like a little mix of Ed Orgeron and Texas Dolly, and Chris kept turning his neck over like, I want to go play with that guy. And next thing you know, Chris is down 200. I'm up 100. Nick's up 100. I don't think Maddie Van Winkle was with us that night. But man, it was so funny, so fun. Then the next day, running into Zumier,
Oh yeah, Zumier.
And
It was
then
fate.
Zumier.
We
It was fate.
we
You
were
were
sitting
right.
at
We
Benny's.
sat down.
We were sitting at Benny's with Zumier at like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, that's degenerate level. And then we only had Zumier for like 15 minutes. Here's what I think happened. We kept being so familiar, calling her by her difficult to pronounce name. From the minute we sat down, she probably felt threatened, like we'd been stalking her, and she was gone in 15 minutes. And Vicky rolled in, and her name ain't Vicky, by the way. Vicky rolled in, and she put us on a cooler of coolers. She freaking smoked us.
Real quick, the background on Zumier, because I'm sure there's some people listening. They're like, "What in the hell are these guys talking about?" So when Hassel and I were there in December, it was after the Cyhawk men's game, and we went to Binion's to play some blackjack. So Binion's, for those, it's the shittiest casino in Vegas, probably. Like, it's, take everything Circa is, it's the opposite. Like, it's horrible. So it's like $5 hands. That's why we went there. And this Zumier, the dealer, we went on like the heater of all heaters. On a $5 table, I went up like $400.
That's incredible.
That's hard to do.
But you got to be splitting and doubling and splitting and doubling splits.
Chris and I both did. So that was the night that Zumier's legend was born. So that's why I'm talking up to John the whole time. I'm like, yeah, we got to go find Zumier.
I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I asked him, like, is her real name Zumier? And you're like, no, she's German. And then I'm like, wait a second. The next night I see her and it's Zumier and she's not German, she's Asian. I'm like, I'm being like double, triple tricked. I don't know what's going on.
I cannot believe that you believed me when I told you she was German. I was just kidding with you.
Because I think I was well into the gummies by that time.
Okay, now I can totally believe it.
We're walking down Fremont Street, and the first thing I see after, just being in the chill and having a gummy is I see the freak show. And I'm like, whoa, this is a little bit much. Whew.
Well, I actually remember, the first thing I remember, and you're looking up at the 3D graphics.
Board, yeah.
And then all of a sudden the divers, one went right over your head.
I thought I was in the
zip
Big
line.
Lebowski and it was Maude flying over naked. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? La 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 la. That's how I felt like Lebowski.
Two more listener notes, and then we're going to wrap it up. Matt says we need to get Zumier on the pod. I'm sure she has some great stories. I would agree. I don't think Zumier could do the pod.
No, there might be a language barrier.
Yeah, I don't think that she could do it.
And who knows if she has good takes.
Hayden says, I think if every Iowa and Iowa State fan, I think they should have to live in Nebraska for a year. After that, you'll support your rival.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know if Iowa and Iowa State fans are at the point where they would just, support one another. And frankly, I don't think that they should. That's not even my point. I'm not trying to encourage Iowa fans to be Iowa State fans or vice versa. No, that's not the whole point. My point is you can acknowledge that a transcendent talent like Caitlin Clark is indeed transcendent, and that doesn't mean you're a fan. You can acknowledge that. It's not downgrading your team by acknowledging what Caitlin Clark is. It's not taking anything away from Ashley Jones to say that Caitlin Clark might be the best women's college basketball player we've ever seen. And that's real, and that doesn't mean that Ashley Clark is any less legendary.
Ashley Jones.
Yeah, Ashley Jones. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ashley Clark, that'd be a heck of a player.
Yeah.
It'd be enjoyable to get maybe do a women's basketball centrist podcast and get some other voices on here. I know over on Cyclone Fanatic, you guys do a great job of shedding light
Yeah, we've been doing that for like almost 5 years. We've had a women's sports only podcast with Steph
Right.
and Elisa. They do an awesome job.
Yeah, and I was thinking maybe like have bring Copley on,
Yeah.
and just like because she had, I thought, a really refreshing viewpoint going into the tournament, and she's definitely a diehard Cyclone fan, as are her sweet little girls, and yet she also can separate the rivalry, dislike, or whatever that is, the rivalry, and say Caitlin Clark is phenomenal for Iowa State women's basketball, for women's basketball as a whole. Maybe not necessarily directly Iowa State, but she's great for the game. And the game needed a catalyst like this. Maybe the game didn't think that there could ever be a catalyst like this, because what Caitlin Clark is Steph Curry meets Pistol Pete Maravich. Caitlin Clark is the face of college basketball right now, not just women's.
No. And can I also say, maybe this will make Iowa fans, I don't know. I'm jealous of Iowa.
I bet. Who wouldn't
like,
be?
We filled up Hilton as Iowa State
Right.
women's basketball fans for
Absolutely.
20 years. We've been supporting Iowa State women's basketball for 20 years. And this was supposed to be our year. And now you guys have the Steph Curry of women's basketball. And it's like,
yes,
I'm jealous.
You just nailed it. You nailed it. I thought of that, Chris. I had thought of that. If I were an Iowa State fan, I would be jealous, and I'd probably be nasty, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
It's like we have been one of the top 10 best programs in women's basketball over the last 10 to 20 years.
Yeah.
We set attendance records, and now these Johnny-come-lately Iowa fans of all teams, why does it have to be Iowa?
Yeah.
It could have been Wisconsin. Okay, that's fine. Could have been Minnesota, Indiana. Why does it have to be effing Iowa? And you know what? Valid. I'd feel the same way. But I think you can still stand and step aside from your own biases and look at Caitlin Clark and say, damn it, this may be the best women's player of all time. And I am not going to be so bitter that I can't sit back and appreciate women's basketball, because Iowa State fans apparently have been appreciating it, not apparently have for a long time. So women's basketball. Sit back and appreciate when Michael Jordan, when the GOAT walks by in your sport.
There was an element of that, and I even felt that on Sunday, where it kind of pissed me off, and it shouldn't have, but like just the human being in me, it's like, all of you losers who are mocking me and calling me names and doing all this stuff, like this is probably like the second women's basketball game you've ever watched in your life.
Right. Exactly.
But it's like, that's not for me, who's dedicated a lot of my career to try and help grow this game because I love it so much. That's a ass backwards way of looking at it. I shouldn't feel that way. But then, like, the human being, emotional part of me is like, you know what? To the guy who just called me the R word, like, how many women's games have you been to over the last 20 years? You know what I mean? Like, so, yeah, we're all humans. We all have bad emotions. We're just juggling it. We're just figuring it out. That's why Miller and Williams are here.
Right. We're just juggling it and shit. I don't know how to juggle.
But you do know how to hold down the 3-bag at Benny's. I can promise everybody that.
Baby, I will take it. If I gotta sacrifice myself at the altar of hitting on 16 when the dealer's showing us 16, I will do it.
Is that like a cat behind you?
No, it's Ginger's down there. She's still alive.
No,
She's still with us.
Behind you.
Oh,
like in the window.
Oh.
There's like a giant pussy in the background. Look at that.
Oh, yeah, that's Skippy.
Oh, Skippy.
That's Skippy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm almost positive we saw your wife walking around in the bathrobe too, maybe, but I'm not positive. No, she's not there now, but I didn't see anything bad. I didn't want to draw attention to it when it was happening. Now she's gone.
But you did now, and then this will be on YouTube so people can rewind the motherfucker. Thanks a lot.
I forgot about the. Anyways, get out of here.
I apologize for swearing. I didn't mean to swear.
Go to your important propane meeting.
I'm actually dropping my daughter off down at a homeless shelter at 10:30. She likes to go on Fridays, her day off from school, and she helps serve meals. And I'm not
Okay.
even making that up. And then I'm heading to Washington, Iowa, and I'm meeting my dad at 3 to play golf.
Just making me look like a total piece.
For the big funeral visitation tomorrow. That's going to be bittersweet, but Butch Peterson.
Yeah, well, thoughts to that community. That's always hard when
Yeah.
you lose a titan of those small towns, man. That's a big
Yeah,
deal.
you know it, man. I mean,
Yeah.
West Branch produced the president of the United States, but I don't think anybody's influenced more people from that town than Butch Peterson.
Well, I'm glad you can get up there and be with everybody then.
Yep, I appreciate it.
All right, he's Jon Miller. My name is Chris Williams. I hope you guys could laugh and maybe think a little bit today as well. Signing off here. Have a great Easter weekend. Enjoy the Masters, baseball, NASCAR, whatever you're doing this weekend. Have a great time.